So, good afternoon and welcome to Cerberus at the Gate. We are Saturday, January 31st, 2026. It is the 62nd episode of Cerberus. So, my name is André Meloche. I will be replacing our dear friend and host, Peyman Askari. And I think we have a good show today because the events are unfolding quite fast. I'm joined with my dear friend and co-host Timothy Knight from BC. How are you, Tim, today?
Good afternoon, Andre. I'm good. I have no complaints. There is enough excitement for the day. So I'm happy to be here, and it's a pleasure to spend time with the three of you on this little venture of ours to be a bunch of angry middle-aged white men in Canada and share our thoughts on the state of the nation.
Which is quite in jeopardy, if I can use the expression. We would like to remind our viewers to share the screen, the stream, to repost if they can, and to comment. We will answer your comments most probably after the 25 minute marks, depending on the topics that we will cover. The first topic that we wanted to talk about, I think everybody already commented on that, was the speech of Mark Carney in Davos, where he was referring to the New World Order that shocked a lot of people, first of all. And the second aspect is the fact that if you're not on the menu, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So maybe, Tim, you can start by explaining a little bit what was the context of the speech of Mark Carney at Davos.
The only thing worth taking away is the New World Order comment, and then later you watch Mo's response, right, from Saskatchewan. Not all the players in the Canadian table want to be at the table, but neither do they want to be on the menu, right? Neither do they want to be on the menu. So it's when I heard about it, and I didn't watch the speech. When I heard about the events unfolding around it, I was immediately reminded of George Bush Sr. with his New World Order things, and he said that 2, maybe even 3 times during his tenure as president of the world, because that's what I call America. You're president of the world. Because watch how Europe completely knee jerks every time the president of the United States speaks. It doesn't matter if that president is Obama or Clinton or Reagan, or it doesn't matter. When the president of the United States speaks, Europe knee jerks. It just does, right? So, New World Order. Well, I mean, how it's considering Agenda 2030 is, 3.5 years away. Agenda 2050 will be, what's that? Our grandchildren's, how old will my granddaughter be? Yeah, she'll be like 25, 30 years old at that time, right? So if it's not obvious to the mainstream voters, and by that I mean the red versus blue voters, if it's not obvious to conservative voters and liberal voters that they are no longer being represented, then there's not much more you can do. There's not much more you can do. Unfortunately, the conservatives are the ones who are on the deck of the sinking Titanic, moving around the chairs and playing as if everything is okay, and it is not.
What is your feeling? What is your take in the English part of Canada? What was the reaction? I'm not connected to mainstream media, but I do go from time to time to check the comments of people.
Mm-hmm.
And people in Quebec, in French, on the Radio Canada website, they were praising the great leadership of Mark Carney. We understand Quebec is a distinct society. What was the reception of this speech? Maybe we can start with the Prime Minister of Provinces, David Eby, Scott Moe, Doug Ford. I think Doug Ford did not really appreciate it. Tim Houston, what did you see Danielle Smith also, I forgot.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ebby is a New Democrat, so that's their aim anyway. And the province of British Columbia being the third largest population and third largest resource, in the Canada, Ebby is in the pocket of the Marxists, so that it satisfies him to talk about New World Order. That works just fine for him. Over on the other side, Tim Houston, right? Nova Scotia is probably of the four eastern provinces. Nova Scotia is probably the wealthiest, and with access to the port of Halifax, et cetera, it has the, what do you call it, key strategic interest, right, to mainland Canada, because basically it's the entry point into the St. Lawrence Seaway, right? Because everybody who comes out the St. Lawrence comes in past Cape Breton, right, south of Newfoundland and north of Nova Scotia, then down into the United States. So Nova Scotia has a key position. So it's in his best interest to stay aligned with whatever the Liberal government's doing. Danielle Steele will probably stay stone-faced until she needs to reveal her hand, and she only reveals her hand when she wants something from Carney. That's it. And I call her Danielle Steele, the cowboy romance novelist from Alberta, who's wooing the conservative traditional cowboy out in the rural areas, but really she's courting, right? She's courting with the city folk because they're the city boy, because that's where the money is as far as she's concerned. So she's playing both sides. She's not trustworthy. Scott Moe, the look says it all. The look says
yes,
right. The look says it all. So if you're sitting there going to read body, you're going to read body language and proxemics and facial tics and all that stuff, then he's like, why am I the first? I didn't get the memo. That's the look, right? I didn't get the memo. Not only did he not get the memo, he doesn't like it. He does, because he knows that's not going to work in a conservative province. He knows it's not going to work. They're all interested in the continuation of their own personal legacy. All of them. And that includes Danielle Steele.
When you talk about the access to the ocean, the east part of Canada, which is Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and I could say maybe Newfoundland too, because it's another issue with fishery and natural resources that are there, and the west part of Canada, which is BC.
Yeah.
Do you think that all the province like Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, do you think they will feel squeezed, pressured?
How in the States they talk about the flyover states. Nobody really pays attention to them because you're flying from New York to Seattle.
Yes, you have the center, the Rust Belt,
right? The center of the country, the continent, even though it is the breadbasket, right? Even though
it is
that's food comes from, where many of the resources come from, it is largely forgotten because of the political and financial influence of the port cities, right? Be it a shipping port or an airport. These are the major. In the States, you have four major centers, right? Seattle, New York, right? LA area, and Florida, right? Texas, yes, okay, but slightly, but yes, sure. Let's say five. But anything in the center, that's a flyover state. Canada has the same problem. Manitoba is. How many 8-year-olds in Canada can show you where Manitoba is on the map, right? And Saskatchewan's only claim to fame right now is potash. I mean, it's the second largest deposit on the entire planet, and it's very poorly managed.
That's what I want to refer to.
Right? Trudeau went into great effort to neuter it, right? Saying, "Oh, potash it contributes to nitrogen and blah blah," and right, and did all that nonsense. So Scott Moe has problems of his own because he's still dealing with the aftermath of what Trudeau did to the potash industry in Saskatchewan, but that's about all it has. So Manitoba's value was, number one, access to James Bay, right? Hudson's Bay, which it never really took advantage of because we don't have the Northwest Passage thing sorted out.
Yes.
Because if there was up is it Tuktoyaktuk? The Tlingit Mountains, or I think it is, right? Like northern Quebec, northern Labrador. If they had a proper deep water port up there, then then Thompson, right, which is a nickel town, right, because the Canadian Shield is the heart of the Canadian Shield is in Manitoba, central and northern Manitoba. They could really have taken advantage of that. But as Carney noted, none of these resources have been taken advantage of, and we are going to do that, and we're going to use our metals to support Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Manitoba hasn't done that, and part of it is neutered because it doesn't have access to a deep water port, northern Quebec, northern Labrador. So not really a player. So Manitoba, not really a player. Saskatchewan, not really a player. Alberta, a player for one reason: people. Right? It's yes, the oil matters, but if the people weren't pulling it out, if the people weren't fighting for the industry, right? If the separatists weren't making all hell noise that they could possibly make, and truth be told, if they hadn't put Pierre back into an office in their own province, they would still really not have much of a voice against Carney. So it's accidental good positioning by actually having Pierre Poilievre sitting there. As much as I don't, like what CPC is up to, that is strategically useful if they use it. BC, incredible resources, one of the largest, two, right? Because we got Prince Rupert Port as well, toward the mid-north, just below the Alaska Panhandle. All of these resources, and we're not effectively using them. We're not effectively using them because transfer payments. We're not effectively using them because, what's it called? The government uses spending. It's called spending power, I think is the word they use, right? So
Yes,
the federal government usurps or withholds the province's constitutional authority and jurisdiction. And the provinces are satisfied to do that because down here in the regular people, they don't know about it. They don't pay attention to it. So we're just going to leave status quo as it is. And status quo is always bad. Because if your government is not agile, or at least as agile as business, and business is generally quite agile, and like every 3 months we get a new sale, right? And if they're not agile, then they're in trouble. So our trouble is there are enough of the people who choose to not be involved that the shenanigans at the top continue. And the shenanigans at the top are now through all 3 or 4 layers of government. I say 4 because we also have, in Canada, there are a lot of regional boards, right? Like here in BC with the Ministry of Health. So you have the provincial ministry, and then there are 27 regions. And then of those regions, right, each municipality also has its own delivery of services. And the regional boards have an extraordinary amount of power. And they're corrupt as well. And people need to be more civically engaged than they are. So when you hear New World Order, you're like, they are literally telling you they're coming to knock on your door. And we are doing not much more than complaining about it.
So maybe we can knock on the doors of our viewers. Some people are reposting the stream. So GT, thank you for reposting the stream. Clown World is always here. Sylvie Jazzy is reposting the stream. Funny part, a little question from Clown World. Did Peyman get fired? We cannot disclose this in public. That's another topic.
Peyman is a madman. He probably does 5-6 podcasts every week.
Yes, I think it's even more than that. Marilyn Walls, thank you for posting the stream. And yes, Marilyn says hi. So we arrive at a point where, when you were talking about the level of governance, the municipal level, the provincial level, the national level, I was watching the reaction not only of Scott Moe but of Daniel Smith, especially after the speech. When Carney came back from Davos and he started to talk about the sacrifice that young generation will have to do to achieve, a better future. The fact that you have 2 million people who goes to food banks every month, and the fact also that there's practically no opposition. Did we hear Pierre Poilievre react? Practically not. And in parallel of that, we had the Epstein file that re-emerged again, with the name of our dear Prime Minister Mark Carney.
Our dear governor of the Bank of Canada.
Well, and
that's when
this
those
is
things
where,
were happening.
This is where it seems to me when I was looking at the conference of Prime Minister, the face they were doing. You were talking about the body language. I saw the small clip from Daniel Smith. She was not very happy. She looked very tired, and I have an idea. I think the memorandum of understanding about the pipeline is already forgotten in the head of Mr. Carney. Do you think that the game that he's playing actually, especially with China and especially with this speech, do you think he's liquidating Canada? For somebody.
I think the Liberal Party of Canada is still in campaign mode. They're not acting. I mean, they're acting as they are the acting government. Well, that's not really true because all of Parliament is the government. So it is a misunderstanding intentionally fed to us by the media that the Liberal Party or the party in power, right, is the government. That's not true. Parliament, the House of Commons, is the government. Right. So otherwise, how does the CPC get to vote in favor of this little GST bump? Because that's what they did. Right. When Paul Lever's party comes out and says, you know, we're going to vote in favor of this food, right, this food relief program, they'll add it on to the GST. The CPC voted in favor of it. But you can't vote in favor of it or against it unless you're actually in government. They're in government. Right? So
well, the measure will cost $7 billion per year. It's not problematic. The debt is not growing.
Right.
It's not
right.
growing.
So they're going to give the, and I don't know if this is true. Maybe I should actually start doing some real research. Apparently, a family of two making $14 and change per hour, which is below minimum wage clear across the country,
exactly,
would qualify for this food rebate.
You know, there's one thing
which means nobody in Canada will qualify for
it. First of all, when you have food rebate, you have to be able to to buy food for that. If you don't buy food, you have any rebates.
So Christmas hamper comes from the Salvation Army, and they give you a voucher. The voucher is worth $25 at participating grocery store or something. If I don't buy groceries, the voucher is worth nothing.
It's worth nothing. It is worth nothing. You know, that's why I when I saw the measure, I told myself it's again public relation. The Liberals are very good at public relation. Yeah. How come the actual official opposition is not challenging those numbers and the real issue, which is you have a national issue, which is the debt, but you have also an international issue, which is the threat or the negotiation between Alberta and the Trump administration. It seems that a lot of prime ministers are not very happy with the strategy, if we can call it like this, of Mike Carney. Am I right? Is it elbows up 2.0?
And unfortunately, even in Harper's last term, he became more and more draconic, right? More and more dictatorial in his behavior. And I get it, but he was. And of course, we'll watch Trudeau do it too. And over time, Trudeau pulled not just legislative power into the executive branch, but also justice authority into the administrative branch, to where in Canada, the administrative branch didn't really even exist because we have a three-pillar system. We have the legislature, right, justice, and the military. That's our three-pillar system. And he introduces
you forgot one. You forgot one,
which is
the Privy Council.
The Privy Council, right? So, and we're all attached at the reproductive organs to that. But the executive branch, which is language that's popped up during Trudeau's terms, is an Americanization, because that's a feature of a republic, not a feature of a democracy. So he begins to use that language, and the media just pushes it out like it's everyday stuff. And over time, people just accept it because we're so closely tied to American culture and American politics. We think, oh, it's just the same. It's all the same. And it's not, because America, at least historically, was a republic, and we were a monarchistic, what do they call it?
Constitutional monarchy.
Constitutional monarchy, right? So a parliamentarian type of the Westminster Parliament, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Carney now has all of this power, not written in law, because that can't be done, but he has this power. So I said this during what's her name, the NDP Premier of Alberta a few years back, Notley, I think was her name, and there was
Rachel Notley.
I can't remember. Yeah. So
yes.
There was a bit of a movement there wanting to recall, to do an electoral recall to get rid of her and stuff. And some people have said, well, how would we go about that? Because I had done some research for that here in BC and stuff. And they said, well, how would we go about that? And I said, this is where you go. They have their own, documents and website for it. But the trouble is, if you try to go to the Conservatives or to the Liberals in order to provide you with that inside support, they are going to decline, because even as opposition, why would I teach you how to do that which you will use against me when I am in power? Right? So even as Trudeau and Carney, etc., Jagmeet, etc., are getting away with these phenomenal atrocities right under the noses of, right, the Conservatives and the Bloc, etc., it's because it'll be the Conservatives' turn soon enough, and they'll have advantage of those tools as well. So
do you think
Peyman did a show, or was talking to somebody about how the judicial system protects itself? It's supposed to be a self-governing or self-policing organization, but now they're actively and publicly protecting crooked judges, and nobody can do anything about it, because that's the structure. But the government's been doing this the whole time.
I think it was George Bush Sr. who said one day to Jean Chrétien at the time, that was, I think, in 2007 or 2005, a little bit after 9/11. And he told Jean Chrétien, he said, I envy you because you have more power than me. You can stay forever. As for me, I can do only 2 terms, which is 8 years. And what we're seeing now is this absence of opposition. You were talking about the GST. It's a cosmetic measure that has no impact on nothing, because the big investment, quote unquote, or spending of the government are huge, and without any accountability, without any timeline, and without any debate. Are there any debates on those engagement that he's taking, especially after the speech he did in Davos? The New World Order, what does that mean? In his mind, as a banker, what does that mean in his mind?
Okay, let's frame it. Let's frame it in banking language, not merely in an Earth planning project, right? Because that does exist. UN actually has a Earth planning project program. So let's frame New World Order in banking terms. Then we're looking at, it would be the Bank of London, right, which is effectively manages Europe and Canada, and the Federal Reserve is tied into that as well. China fights against it because Russia has no choice, because nobody will do business with Russia. Frame New World Order in that, then that means there's no way around central bank digital currency. They will do what they want. Look what happened with silver yesterday and the day before, where it dropped 35%. And I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, but that the primary reason why the banks did that is because they're intentionally shorting silver. Right. And by doing so, they're balancing or improving the state of physical currency used to make sure that they have their reserves, right, per bank, right? That's a CDIC type of thing where they have to have a certain amount of cash available. So what do? You intentionally short your asset and its physical money value, and that inflates the value of what's in your reserve.
Yes, but Canada has no gold, first of all, so it's they cannot play on many features like this,
But
like gold,
the
silver.
the Bank of London does,
But that's the question.
right?
Then we could ask
Right.
ourselves, what is the real goal of Mark Carney if he's trying to liquidate the country for a future stakeholder? We have to know where we're heading. Maybe we go to some of the question. I saw some quite interesting question, if you permit me, Tim.
Mm.
JT is saying libs and cons gave up independence for the convenience of a totalitarian rule by daddy government, new world order. What do you think of this?
No, and that's we've been seeing that since the beginning of Trudeau back in 2015, where slowly over time, Andrew Scheer and then O'Toole, what was his name?
It was
Aaron
Aaron O'Toole.
Aaron
Aaron
O'Toole,
O'Toole.
right? So slowly over time, they put up less and less and less resistance, right? And Paul Revere initially came out in a storm, but realistically, he was ripping off on actual conservative policy in order to recover his base, which had bled off a little bit after 2021 election. So he's
Mhm.
trying to he was strong and outspoken on these, like go right up to the apple chewing moment and stuff like that. But not too terribly long after, he just you get into the 2025, half of his party is not even attending debates. Why? Because they're comfortable. They know they're keeping their seat. They're comfortable. So it's the what you say was the president who said, "I envy you because you can sit in your chair forever." Is that not
Yeah,
what we're
more
looking
power.
at?
Yes.
Is that not what we're looking at? And as long as the status quo can be moved, who cares if you're 37% and 35%?
Do you think we will
Polls,
see
polls and
a clash between the conservative and the liberal? Could we go into another election in 2026?
why? What would be the purpose of another election? If they're
Well,
all in it together, if
maybe
they're
to
all in it
undermine
together,
the Alberta separatist movement, or to derail it.
I but does that really, pardon me, does that really matter? Because they're still going to take their 20 billion from Alberta no matter what. It doesn't matter how much they complain, just right, just put your arm out and we'll stick the needle in and we'll take as much blood as we need. There's no stopping it because Danielle Steele, like the cowboy romance novelist, continues, right, continues to keep the tap open. She hasn't turned off the tap. They still remit funds. Why are you remitting funds? There's something in it for you, right? And nobody seems to be approaching that question. So
Mhm.
status quo remains status quo, and everything that we're watching at ground level is bread and circuses.
So we need popcorn.
That's going to be
Sun.
like that's the carbon footprint, man. That's going to be
Okay,
interesting,
no popcorn, no beer. Let's go with sparkling
right?
water if we can.
That's
Sundown
that's from
95.
yeah.
Thank you for reposting the stream. I have another question from or a comment from GT. He's saying, are liberal good at public relation, or is the Canadian public en masse ridiculously ignorant?
What thing has Paul Revere done that has remotely as much repeatability as elbows up? Nothing. Nothing.
Well,
Paul Revere has
he
that.
had his three-word slogan.
All right. So the 3-word slogans lasted until the day after the federal election, right? Meanwhile, we're still getting traction out of elbows up. So yeah, I think the liberals are good at what they're doing. That doesn't mean I have to like it. I don't have to believe in it, but they are effective because it's still in the air, right?
I have another comment here. Let Peyman speak.
The raised fist, censored mouth. That's good.
I have a
Yeah.
question from. We have a question from Clown World. She writes, "Back in the Jean Chrétien days, I didn't pay as much attention to politics as I do today. To me, he seemed to have done not too badly, especially on the economy. Although he brought in the GST. That's a very good point. What are your take on Chrétien at the time? What's your
Well, what do
take
you
about
think?
Chrétien?
What do you think?
What do I think? For me, if I go back in 1995 with the referendum and the Clarity Act with Stéphane Dion, and he's from Quebec. First of all, I always said that Chrétien is speaking for both sides of the mouth. And I was saying that Chrétien, he speaks badly as French as he speaks in English. And now I will not be. I will say, okay, sorry, he's a lawyer, quote unquote,
Right.
or jurist, if you prefer. In 1995, I would have think that Chrétien was a traitor because he was the. Don't forget, he was the minister on the Pierre Trudeau government. And in 1992, when there was the night of the long knife, when they stabbed René Lévesque in the back, while he was in Gatineau, sleeping because they had a conference of prime minister. That's why I was referring a little bit to what is happening now, actually.
Yeah.
So my opinion still valid. I think he's a traitor in a sense that he's not serving Canadian. He never served Canadian. He was very close to power with Pierre Trudeau. Then when he became prime minister, the only thing that I will give the man is that he did not invade Iraq with the United States. And don't forget, at the time, it was Jacques Chirac who was prime president of France, and they refused to go to Iraq. And the United States renamed the French fry the Freedom Fry, and that's the only thing that I would concede to Jean Chrétien. And he gave an interview, I think it is in last November, to Radio Canada, and they asked him, they said, if Canada would have separated, would you have permitted, would you have negotiated with the separatist movement? And he immediately said no. So for me, he never really served or was never really working for Canadians. And I include Quebec in this. What's your take, Tim?
Well, I was early 20s, I think, when Chrétien was in power. We say in power, isn't that interesting? We just naturally say it. We don't even know what we're saying. When he was prime minister, we say in power. We don't even mean it. We end up saying it anyway. I remember them campaigning for the GST, and he said, we're going to use the GSP 100% to pay down the debt. And then within 6 months of getting the GST rammed down our throats, they put together a special committee to decide how to spend it. That's all I needed to know. Right? That's all I needed to know. So, yeah, it's the Shawinigan handshake. Yeah, that's JT's comment. I remember hearing a story, it was in the news, that apparently somebody managed to make it past his RCMP guard in his home and managed to make it into the house up onto the hallway or something. And he woke, and he had a small statue that was given to him of some bronze statue or whatever. And he went and practically assaulted the guy in the hallway outside his own bedroom before.
Yes.
He came in. So I'm thinking, the man's got gumption, right? And then the Shawinigan, right? The death grip, right?
Yes.
Darth Vader death grip, right? With the sunglasses on, right? The whole Terminator face. These are moments that forever, turn a man, no matter what, turn him into a blue collar hero, no matter what.
Well, if I go back 30 years with the referendum in 1995, I hope I've matured and evolved. Today, I see that Jean Chrétien was probably a very good politician, telling people what they want to hear, promising something and never delivering nothing. And he was very good at it. He was I think he was finance minister or foreign affairs minister. Then after that, he became prime minister. So he was behind Trudeau He was the, I would say, the poodle of Trudeau. And
Next
then he
in
became
line.
next in the line. And this is maybe when we think about Justin Trudeau and
Mhm.
Mark Carney. I think people, they forget very fast that Mark Carney was advising Trudeau for 4 or 5 years during the pandemic. Who advised Chrystia Freeland to freeze the bank account of people here in Canada? It's Mark Carney.
Carney. Yeah.
So
Who advised Harper during the 2008-2009 crisis? Mark Carney.
Mark Carney. So
He was governor of the Bank of Canada from 2008 to 2013. He came in. That means he came in either just before or during.
It was a little bit after. We had Joe Flaherty, who was finance minister, and after that he arrived there. He was governor of the Canada Central Bank.
So if they flew him in at the beginning of the Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae crisis, right?
2008,
right? If they flew him in then, by they I mean the Bank of London, right? Flew him in then to be the governor of the Bank of Canada during that crisis. Did they already know what was going to happen? Because the Bank of London is busy going, oh, there goes the Lehman Brothers, right? Oh, there goes AIG, right? Whereas America bailed out AIG, and Bank of London said to Lehman Brothers, sorry guys, not doing it. You're on your own. And Lehman, which was like the oldest bank on the planet at that time, right? Continuous operations, went under. And Carney's floating in just under the radar, helping Harper to maintain fiscal responsibility to keep Canada was actually top performer in the G7 or actually
G7, the G7,
G7 or G8 at that time, right?
Don't push your luck. Don't push your luck.
Not all of them, but some of them. But Canada was a top performer, and we rode out that crisis. So Harper knows what he's doing. And if it's not that he knows what he's doing, there are definitely competent people above him who can see bigger things than most politicians can. So he's been in the mix for a long, long time. So he has earned, right? They say the people like to complain, selected, not elected, but he earned it.
Yes.
And I don't mean to say that I approve of him. I'm just saying he earned it.
Stay in line. There's another comment from GT. I know it was dirty. That's why I self-flat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a comment from Clown World, Sylvie. Chrétien was minister of everything. Do you think Carney is the prime minister of everything, like a
the same as Trudeau? It's the same as Trudeau.
Because it seems to me that the prime minister of provinces, or even Trump, I think he had a phone conversation with Trump, and after that he changed his narrative. How do we perceive this?
Well, isn't switching the
is it strategy?
Yeah, I was going to say it's a negotiating tactic. It's a negotiating tactic, right? Yeah, it's a negotiating tactic. Bring up Unacceptable's comment.
Unacceptable's comment, yes, about René Lévesque.
You all believe, see, and I was a kid with René Lévesque, but you couldn't turn on CBC and go, that guy's worth watching, because he was always angry.
Well, René Lévesque was a war correspondent in I think it was in the Korea War. And when he came back, I've learned that recently, he was co-opted. He was selected to become journalist in Radio-Canada. And he had a TV show every week. The title was Point de Mire, like it's a target. And he was explaining international politics. So he became very popular around the 1959, 1960. And then after that, he joined the Liberal Party as a Ministry of Natural Resources. And he was the one who promoted the nationalization of all the private hydroelectric company. He was the and they did the election in 1963. It was practically an election on the nationalization. So he became an icon of the freedom movement, if I can use the expression, in 1963, 1965. And then in 1967, he split up with the Liberal Party, because he was of the Liberal Party, and he started to drift away. Robert Bourassa was the prime minister
Yes.
at the time. They were very good friends up to a certain point, and then they split. There's a book that's called the divorce brother, between Lévesque and Bourassa. Yes, and if I go back to what you were talking about, how Carney is acting actually, maybe we'll switch after subject. Do you think that he can keep up the momentum in the next few months?
Yes. He's eating well. His sleep is not interrupted.
He doesn't go to food banks. So that's
right.
I do agree with you.
Right. So, I mean, he's motivated. He's been waiting since at least 2008 to get into the chair. And here he is. So there's work to be done for him. The day is young. There's work to be done. So just to note for Clownwood, Chrétien was not the journalist. René Lévesque was the journalist. To go back
René Lévesque was journalist. Yes.
Unacceptable's comment. Sounds like you all believe there is someone there who can be trusted. I'm going to tell a super short story. Once upon a time, I had a girlfriend of mine back in my drinking days when I was very, very not nice. And she said, I can't trust you. I said, you can absolutely trust me. You can trust me to be me. You figure that out. Right? We can absolutely trust our elected members. We can trust them to be themselves. So if we want to know who that is, then we need to pay attention and learn who they are. Right? So you want to know who somebody is? Check their voting record. Right? Well, check how their language moves across when they do, public messaging and whatnot. And then that's how you'll know if they can or cannot be trusted. You can trust them to be themselves.
If I can reassure Unacceptable, the new Laura Lee, who has a Russian flag at the end of her name, and I think I understand the meaning. No, we don't trust. Personally, I don't trust nobody, including myself, in the sense that I will always try to challenge myself. Then, do Canadians trust politicians? You still
60% of them do.
They
60%
do, exactly.
of them do.
So how do we get out of
maybe
this?
Even 70%, right? Maybe even 70%, right? Because what are the quote unquote polls right now are Liberals at 37 and Conservatives at 35 or something like that. So you're talking about 70% of the population are still satisfied with the red versus blue. They're still satisfied to play the game. So
when you mix red and blue, you have purple.
No, there's no trusting the polls either, Clown World, but they do let you know where who's been drinking the Kool-Aid, right? And what color the Kool-Aid is this week. Unacceptable made an interesting comment there. Believe that they will be a corporation, not a human. That's an interesting conversation because you look at people psychologically. How are they behaving the moment they sit on the bench versus how were they behaving before they ever got on a bench? And where is that transformation? Do they go from being human and therefore somewhat relatable, maybe even believable, and then they step into the corporation that is the party or the corporation that is the legislature or the mayoralty, right, et cetera, or the actual federal government? That's incorporated. Then what happens? Right? Are you no longer talking to a human, but you're talking to a rubber stamping arm of the corporation? How do Canadians protect ourselves from that?
Can we say that Carney would be AI, an AI production?
It's funny. I'm working with AI for some project development and stuff, and I'll tell you flat out, as much as AI, the possibility of it is absolutely astonishing. We are in no danger of AI taking over all of these jobs they keep making noise about, because AI is effectively the 3-month-old puppy who keeps chasing every toy that falls down the stairs. It is absolutely untamable tool. So we are quite a long ways away from getting that thing really into a manageable state. However, I know how it's going to behave, right? So I can adapt, my behavior toward making it do the job I need it to do. It's like having a hammer, one of those rubber hammers. You'll get stuff done, but it'll take 17 times more energy, right? that type of thing. The people have an opportunity to educate themselves. And because that takes work, because it takes energy, because they like, well, where do I go to get the truth? It's difficult to do. And so, people come to shows like this, and then we shoot our faces off and say what we think for people, hoping that they go and get an education for themselves. One of the things that Peyman does, right, when he's on like 6, 7, different shows with a variety of different podcasters and voices and topics and subjects, is trying to show the people the information is there, right? Go and get it yourselves, arm yourselves, right? He's out there knocking himself out, 6, 7 times a day, not to mention, what he does here with our show and stuff. And the information is there. It's just a matter of not being discouraged, right? And falling into stasis. You have to do. I've been involved with the People's Party for 7 years now, right? You have to commit. You have to commit. Why? Because if a cause is worthy, you should commit.
One last comment before we change. We go to our next subject. What do you think of this? Carney is at the table.
Well, when he's the one giving out the food stamps, he's at the table.
Well, okay, but who's on the menu? You, me?
Yeah.
Canadians?
Yeah. White meat.
White meat. Oh, that's. Please share and subscribe and repost the stream so we will not be censored.
So we can eat some white meat. Yeah.
Yes. Maybe there's something. Maybe we can talk about two other aspects. We've passed the 45-minute mark. We were mentioning earlier the Prime Minister conference and the reaction of the Prime Minister. I think many people were not very pleased with the meeting, because they want to show unity in facing the Trump administration. What do you think? How do you think they will act provincially? I think about Danielle Smith, or I think about Scott Moe. David Abbey, I think you answered very well. We'll just follow the waves and the tide, and it will not even care because he doesn't have any spine. But the Alberta movement, separatist movement, or sovereignist movement is gaining momentum. How do you think she will react? Will she be the leader that many Albertans are expecting?
Depends on what you're expecting.
Well, to lead the province,
Danielle Smith is not going to save Albertans from Ottawa's overreach and abuse. She's not. She'll, like you said, with Chrétien, able to make the right words and the right statements and the right gestures at the right time to the right people to make these quasi promises that never need to be fulfilled. And she's doing it. She's been doing it since she got in the chair. I will not forget her early campaign with the UCP, I guess it was when she became leader.
Yes.
I will release the Coots 4. She said it.
She did not.
Of course not.
Of course not. But that's why, that's why I'm asking you, who will break the unity? We saw Doug Ford. We forgot to talk about our dear friend.
Doug Ford will break the unity because he's going to be angry that EV cars are going to put like Chinese EV cars are going to put his car manufacturers out of business.
And how many workers of GM were laid off? I think it was 700. And Milan, and they will relocalize the production in Indiana. I think they're hiring 300 people in Indiana right now.
Insane.
I think Doug Ford was not very happy about this, but he's a conservative. Is he?
No,
he's not.
No, he's not. He's whatever color he needs to be. Right.
So
the man shits rainbows. Right. He's whatever color he needs to be. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. And it's because one moment he's in bed with I say Christian. One moment he's in bed with Carney, and the next moment he's in bed with, the whoever is in the neighboring state down below him for trade, etc. Doug Ford's an opportunist. He's an absolute opportunist, and he will kiss the ass of whoever offers him the biggest deal. He just wants to continue his stretch. And the fact that there are or were 3 small provincial conservative parties in the last election gives him an opportunity to capitalize on that, because he knows there is conservative undertones, right? He knows, so when it's time, he feeds it. And I'm already here, boys. I hear you. Just keep me going.
So after the last April 2025 election, with the elbows up slogan or sci-hop, it worked very well. There's a comment from Clown World. Daniel Smith is not a separatist, and the other comment that I wanted to show was interesting. It was from if I can find it. I will find it later. What do you think of this? She's not a separatist.
So I become a counselor or a mayor or a school district trustee or a regional bureaucrat of some type, or I get into the legislature or I get into the federal government. And where's my oath? To the Dominion of Canada. Specifically those words, the Dominion of Canada. That's my oath. I'm not a separatist.
Okay.
Right? Like and by I mean that particular politician or bureaucrat stepping into that role, making that oath, they're not separatists.
Okay, there's another comment I want to display from Unacceptable, the new Laura Lee. Her wings are clipped already, of wings of Daniel Smith. I have a question for you. You say you're not a separatist. They were making fun in Quebec many years ago, and they're still doing it. When they talk about sovereignty, they will, or nationalists, they will talk about the Nationalist Party, or they will use the word sovereignist, or they will use the word separatist, which is, somebody will break the country. Who, in your opinion, will break the country now?
Carney.
Why?
And I say Carney because inevitably he's creating fractures where there were just fissures before, right? He continues to separate East and West. He continues to play Central Canada politics versus the West. The Maritimes has no real option but to go along. For whatever reason, that's what they've chosen to do. They don't have to, but that's what they've chosen to do. Quebec and Ontario are always in it, like cranky husband and wife, right? They've been married too long, and they're empty nesters now, but they still hate each other. That's Ontario and Quebec. The West is that's the fat of the land, and the East just sucks on it. And the fissuring and the cracking that Carney continues to create is going to be down at the grassroots level. Sooner or later, that's going to break. My hope is that breaks into competent people, like financially and with integrity and financial responsibility, become counselors, mayors, school district trustees, and from the ground up. There are 4,500 municipalities in Canada. Can you imagine if only 10% of them, right, were managed by people with moral and intellectual integrity, right? So we have a habit, and Carney's picking away at the top. The fractures are happening down at the bottom, and the opportunity that we have is underneath is repair what's underneath, but that takes time. And the question is, can it be done before 2030? Probably not. Can it be done before 2050? Yes. So whatever it is that we want to do to assist family development, right, strengthening our families, strengthening our communities, right, strengthening our local economies, we need to be involved in that right now.
There's a comment here that is interesting. Country is broke. More martinis are needed. Okay, you answer my question that on the Canadian part. What if Trump's breaks the country?
is
What if
saving
Trump
us from
arrive and say, okay,
is
we had negotiation with Alberta separatist sovereignist movement or independent movement, and we agree with them.
Last week we talked about Canada as Africa 2.0, being a massive resource nation. And what if Europe was vying for control of Canada in some form of superstate, or China vying for control of Canada in some form of superstate, or America vying for control of Canada for a superstate? And which would we prefer? Well, I don't want Europe because it's a bunch of dysfunctional siblings, right? They can't even get their own stuff sorted out. I don't want China because I don't need communism. Sorry,
You don't
not
want China.
Not that version.
Maybe you already have China.
Maybe we already have it. I prefer America because at least geographically it is a single unified.
It's a natural alliance,
right? Right, it's a natural alliance. So Central America, right? Mexico, Canada, the United States, and I think that is. I think if there are any martinis, they should be towards unification of a North American state. Do I want to be Canadian? In my heart of hearts, yes. My father was 20 years old. He was a guardsman. So that's the red monkey suits and the bearskin hats. In 65, when the Canadian Maple Leaf was first came in, and Dad was one of 4, always chokes me up, 4 color guard that took the first Canadian flag to every legislature across Canada. So there's my dad, and he says, here I am, just a stupid newfie, 20 years old, bringing the new Canadian flag to every legislature in Canada. It's the proudest moment of my life. And I'm his son. Technically, I'm a first-generation Canadian. Go figure, right? Because my mom and dad are from Newfoundland, born before Newfoundland joined Confederation. Because after 49, all Newfoundlanders were naturalized as Canadian citizens. So I prefer Canada. Right? But if not, then I prefer a stable free market economy. That's what we do it that way. Let's look at it from an economic perspective, right? And then if the branding changes over time, so be it, because we have to recognize that branding changes over time. That's just human nature. I want to cling on the identity that I had as a Canadian or a Newfoundlander or et cetera, right? Or Irish or whatever, Catholic, whatever you. So we all have these identities. The greater identity is we're human, right? And we have to be able to put up with each other, right? The idea of tolerance in a conservative mindset, tolerance is it's a mechanical chemical term, right? Tolerance is how far can I bend it?
You can bend without breaking,
right? So that's a measure of tolerance. But here in what we've been taught with tolerance in the last 10 years or so is you must tolerate my poor behavior. No, I don't think I have to.
There's one comment, maybe we can just maybe move on to another topic after. What is a real Canadian?
So in
what are the values?
In my view, and I'm only speaking as right a Newfoundlander of Irish Catholic upbringing, so with all of that culture, and then planted over into Western Canada, in the 80s. So all of that 70s, 80s, whatever Canada was in that time, that's pretty much what I am. Right. And that changes over time because my children, they're all born here. So ask them what it means to be Canadian. They'll tell you something different. We have to be adaptable, but I think the core is a traditional family Eurocentric structure. That's the core of Canada.
And you think it's a good definition. And I was listening to what you're saying. The religious part, the Catholic and the Protestant, and how, but it is a Christian nation. Somebody will arrive.
Christian philosophy, the foundations of our justice system, the foundations of equality and equal opportunity, right? Those are Christian. But the country.
Well, I was not necessarily referring to this. I was referring to the fact that we have a structure that, in appearance, it seems united. But was it ever united? Especially when you think about Newfoundland, who arrived late in the Confederation, and then the idea of Quebec and what you're always referring, the new money, the Western province that represents the new money versus the old money. Is it possible even today, considering the international political context, to unite Canada and be, for example, keep the sovereignty of Canada, but be a great ally for United States, so we would not be a threat, we would be an ally? Is it possible? Or because if it is not, maybe we will keep our history, but will we keep our political power? You refer to the city of London, which is maybe we're controlled by the Privy Council and by some foreign entities. We can talk about China. We can talk about many lobbies, Indian lobby, Chinese lobby, but we already have a foreign entity controlling the country. He's called the
Crown.
King. The Crown, exactly. How do we emerge from this? I think we're seeing what is happening now, and we don't have yet a plan to evolve into something else. How do we? What's the new future? Let's say the next 6 months to 12 months.
So I think Trudeau Sr. created the Canada you and I remember from our childhood, and Trudeau Jr. is dismantling it. So now Carney comes in. Remember, we always talk about the revolutionary and the counter-revolutionary?
Counter-revolutionary. I was thinking about this. Yes, go ahead.
So I think that Trudeau Sr. is the revolutionary that undoes everything that Canada was up until Diefenbaker. Right? And then Trudeau Jr. comes in. Well, then there were Mulroney counter-revolutionary, right? So you can get the little revolutions, little blue and red not revolution, but revolutions, like a wheel turning around.
Yes, it's a wheel. It's a wheel.
Little blue red revolutions, right? Now it's liberal, now it's conservative, etc. All the way up until you get to Trudeau, and that's an entire generation. Actually, it's 40, 45 years. And so now here's Carney. Carney comes in as the right. So Trudeau comes in as the revolutionary. It's 2015, don't you know? That's why half of my cabinet are female. Because it's 2015. No other good reason. He never said that they're all actually highly qualified. They're all really good at what they do. They're all right. He didn't say that. He said because it's 2015. So he does this equal nonsense and fills half the cabinet with women, and then completely disrespects every single one of them by not crediting them for any of the credentials that any single one of them justified them being there. It said, "Oh, because it's 2015," and nobody realizes that they've been insulted. So he does this revolutionary thing. And now you move forward where somebody gets concerned that the Blues might actually turn into the counter. I was one of them. I thought that it was Blues' turn. I thought that Pierre would win this previous election. That's kind of what I expected to see. But lo and behold, Pierre flubs the ball, right? He fumbles and drops the ball. And so they pick Carney. So Carney becomes the counter-revolutionary. Even within their own party. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Strategically, a stroke of genius. The Liberal Party says
you create the problems and you propose the solution. I was thinking about the restoration.
That's Stalin 101.
1814 with the restoration after the defeat of Napoleon, when they reinstated Louis XVIII and they reinstated the monarchy in France. But on the contrary here, what is interesting and fascinating is exactly what you're saying. The revolutionary becomes counter-revolutionary, and then they control all the narrative.
Yes.
So
yes.
What would be the strategy of the Conservative Party now that they have re-established their confidence in Pierre Poilievre? 87% of the members voted for the confidence vote, even if that included non-Canadian citizen voters, which is...
And it did.
So what's the message that is sent to Canadian from what's a political perspective? Because he was reelected, so now he will be the leader. Even if he lost his seat, he lost 20 points in the last 6 months before the election. He lost his seat, and now he is he's sticking like what? He's sticking like glue.
Well, now we used to call
What's his
Trudeau
strategy? What will be the strategy of the Conservative Party?
Didn't we call Justin the Teflon man? Nothing stuck to him. Well, now Pierre's
Is
the
it
Teflon.
is it a characteristic of all politicians?
But in some ways, I think about it in, I suppose Shakespearean theater would be the right, more modern blend, to say that in all of Shakespeare's plays, you have certain central roles. He changes the name of the character, he changes the setting, he can even change a theme, but there are always individuals in that play who play a particular role. There's always a jester, right? There's always a depressive, there's always a manic, there's always the right. So these individuals, which goes back to, it goes back to the Olympians, right? So you always have these gods who represent this. So now we're going straight back to, how does real life actually mimic human mythology? How to actually, like, character arcs? What are archetypes? It's archetypes, right? So we no longer have Trudeau, the Teflon man archetype, but we need a Trudeau Teflon man archetype. The Teflon man archetype, well, it's Pierre. Steps into the role. He may not even know it. I think a lot of this is just straight up human behavior.
He's not aware. He's not aware of it.
He might not even be aware. Someone up there is aware. I mean, here we are sitting and think that we can do something.
You were referring to mythology, and no, I will not quote Robert Grave, because I'm forbidden to do it since last week. There's a comment. From GT. What could be expected? Being the best you can be, and promoting that every other Canadian around you do the same. This is also what Trump makes it seems he would like for his allies. You always, Tim, mention influence people around you, grassroots movement, engage locally. What is your take about what would be a good advice for Canadian?
Well,
especially now.
We continue on the show, used to end on the show regularly saying, you focus on your family. You strengthen what you can in your family. You help, and I don't want to use the word resilience, because the woke have taken that word away from us. To them, resilience means resistance. It's not the same thing. But you find a way to strengthen your family, and to make that broken unit, because there's a lot of brokenness in our families, to make that whole again. If the enemy, perceived and otherwise, are busy breaking up our families, that's where we need to focus. So it becomes, in the 80s, I've said this 1,000 times. In the 80s, there was this shampoo commercial, and so the idea is, the idea of evangelism in a sense of promotion.
Which brand? You don't remember?
But it goes back when TV was experimenting with new technology, computer technology and stuff. So it says, and she told 2 people, and she told 2 people, and she told 2 people.
Yes, I do remember.
And the camera pulls back, and they see more and more faces, and more and more faces, and more as it multiplies and magnifies. And that stuck with me, even though I was a child when I saw it. I really liked that representation. So we do the same thing with our families. And of course, if my neighbor is doing the same thing with their family, and my neighbor over there is doing the same thing, all of a sudden, and I don't mean to slip into Tony Robbins language, but all of a sudden there's healing, if you know what I mean. And I don't mean that in like,
it is spreading slowly.
Right?
Yes.
Right. Because your anchor is strong again. And so if we can do this, then all our noise about political, dissecting what they mean and what this is trying to do, and sitting on a podcast and saying this and this and this, and the audience says, oh, well, what we think this, and you think you're wrong, but we think this, and all this exchange becomes moot, because we're healthy, because good people are applying for jobs in government. Good people are behaving honorably in their bureaucratic positions. And so this miasma of Marxism is pushed away off the top, like a fog evaporating in the morning sunshine. Now I'm getting poetic.
Have you been smoking?
Right.
Have you been smoking marijuana? No, because
Right.
you say, well,
It's supposed to smoke the sage, not
we
smoke the
we
sage.
we have an anchor, but I'm sorry. I do agree with you. I do agree with what you said. But we have an anchor. The Titanic also has an anchor.
The
It's still
Titanic
in the
has an anchor.
bottom of. It's still in the
Yeah.
bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
something.
The
Clown word. She's very active today. Thank you, Clown word. It's very nice to hear from you. She said that confidence vote is a complete joke. Can we compare this to the famous non-confidence vote that we always see in the parliament that it always defeated? It's like the bloc allies with the NDP or with the liberal, the conservative with the bloc, and they play this game, and the government always hold to the power, even if it is minority government since 2021.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm impressed. You don't need a majority to govern anymore.
No, and the truth of the matter is, in a multi-party democratic system, we are not supposed to have rule, or like, it's everybody sitting in those benches. Right now, 343. Everyone sitting in those benches comprises the government. Right? Comprises the government. The opposition party is called the opposition party, not so that it's always the contrarian. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to find the holes, right? To expose the bias of the party of the majority, to make sure that legislation and planning and programming actually fulfills the mandate of the people who put them there. Right, regardless of whether I voted for the Liberals, now they're the majority of Parliament. My MP, right, which is here in Chilliwack, my MP, he's a conservative. He has a responsibility to represent me, not represent his party's mandate, because the party mandate should be that which is given to it by its members.
Yes,
Right,
I do
via
agree with
a
you.
robust member ratified constitution, and they respect that. But that's not how real life works, because money talks and bullshit walks.
Well, money, and like GT mentioned, when you control the narrative, you decide what sticks. If anything, it is the media. When we can just go back to the speech of Carney in Davos. Everybody was praising Carney as the new great leader of the new world order. And I'm pretty sure I would like to, maybe I will do an exception and I will go check some mainstream media tomorrow, even if I will have to take some painkiller after. How the
Somebody
CBC,
mentioned martini, so you could load up on
maybe Martin could be good. I will be curious to see how the mainstream media will treat the confidence vote for Polyev, how they will treat him. Because they praised Carney, and they always try to undermine the power or the I would say the leadership of Pierre Poilievre. I'm not a fan of Poilievre, but he won with 87.4% the vote.
Yeah.
So it shows that the vast majority of people, and it's a national convention, there's a lot of people that are there. So they still believe that he can reverse the tide. How will he do it? What will be the strategy? This is another issue. Will he? He's in Alberta now. He was elected in a seat in Alberta. Wow. Maybe he should have thought about it before, because with the actual sovereignist movement, he will be stuck between two positions.
No. He just has to speak to Alberta about their why is Alberta having separatist sentiment. So he speaks to the pain point like a good salesman. He speaks to the pain point. Says, I hear your pain. We are listening to you. That Carney fella, he's not paying attention. And your MP, your premier, she's hobbled because she's in this difficult situation. She's doing her best. Now he makes friends, see? He makes friends out of the UCP. Right? I know your pain. We will do everything we can to respect your sovereignty. He'll use the right words. Your sovereign resources, your jurisdiction, because now he's quoting Constitution, and the separatists will go. Finally, somebody's listened, and they'll vote for him.
Well,
He will dismantle Alberta's sovereignty. If he's paying attention to this show at all, that'll be $50,000.
I saw on X there was a post, and I don't know if Peyman had an interview or if he will have an interview with this young gentleman from Alberta, and he paid to attend the conservative convention. And immediately when he arrived, he asked to have his badge, and they said, "You're not allowed to go in." And he was categorized as a separatist. While he posted many posted on X today saying that I'm not advocating for separatism of Alberta. I wanted to go as a conservative to go to the convention, and they forbid me to go inside. Uh, is it the new way of doing politics today? You exclude people who do not think like you, and we see this many times on X or on any other alternative media or social media. Every time you criticize somebody, and I used to criticize a lot the Conservative Party, not because I'm not a conservative. I use the satire, I use sarcasm, but I will never undermine the idea of the conservative ideas. But I think some people, they don't have a lot of sense of humor. How can they manage this type of uh, communication strategy?
The people have a short memory.
How do we change? How do we help them have a better sense of duty or information?
The grassroots, quote unquote, cannot be emotional exposition only. They must become engaged. And I'm not talking about posting memes on X. I'm talking about becoming school trustees, becoming principals, right? Becoming businessmen who resist abusive taxation, et cetera, about becoming counselors and mayors and regional bureaucrats and being honorable in those positions. The only way to fight back is to turn over the soil underneath the existing rot, right? So that as new people come in, right, as the quality people who are mayors and counselors and regional, they will move into provincial positions, and then they will move into, right, and this takes a generation, because it took 2 generations for Marxism to do, and they told us they were going to do it, right?
Yes,
The
they
Communist
told us.
Manifesto, right? The Communist Manifesto is 80 years older. They told us they were going to do it, and then they went and did it. Now it's on us to not look for the miracle cure, the one person who will save us, because that's the lie. Odin's not coming to save you. Odin made this happen. Zeus is not coming to save you. Zeus made this happen. There's no praying for Jesus because he's not going to save you. You must fix your family. You must fix your local government. You must fix your schools. And protesting and carrying placards, it has its place, but that is supposedly a clarion call to action. And that's the opportunity. And I don't say it in a bad way, because it can be done. I call it an opportunity, but it takes dedication and it takes commitment. And a lot of people who want to do it aren't trained for it, or aren't ready for it, or can't make that sacrifice, etc. Then find the ones who can and support them.
If I can display one comment from Unacceptable, the New Laura Lee, the New World Order encourages our one perspective only, the winning perspective. Remember a little bit earlier, I was talking about who's at the table and who's on the menu. A lot of Canadians today, they are very concerned, not only for themselves but for their children, and the fact that the economy is not in a depression mode, not in a recession mode. I think it's even more deep than that. They are stuck, enslaved by a system that does not listen anymore. It's like you have the train conductor had a heart attack, and the train is going 60, 65 mile per hour, and nobody's in the cabin, and then and you don't know how to stop it. You don't know how to stop it. I do agree with you. Grassroots movement engaging locally, but I feel a lot of despair from people who say, "I go to my town hall, they don't even listen to me.
Yes,
I go to the school board, they don't even listen. I'm kicked out because I'm concerned about the ideology, the Soji and the ideology, and they're kicked out, and they're not even heard by the politician, even at the local level."
Yeah.
So it's quite disturbing.
Yeah, towns in Canada, municipalities, and like in BC now 2026 is a general election year. So there will be elections in October this year for school boards, councillors, mayors. So that would be province wide. And this happens in every province. If you figure out that of the 4,500 registered municipalities in Canada, let's say the average is around 50,000, 70,000 people, average 50,000 people. And only 7,000 or 8,000 actually vote. What do you do with
it? You can make a big difference if you can reach those people.
So show up, right? I can't be bothered. Well, then don't bitch. Stop complaining. Right? Put your head down, pay your taxes, keep your fool mouth shut. If you won't get off your butt and mark an X. And I don't really care who you mark it for. I care that you mark it. Right? That's my anger point, right? Is you can't complain. It's an old adage, and it sounds trite. It sounds cheap. It sounds like it's full of logical fallacies. But you are a citizen. If you want to complain, go pay for your right to complain. Go mark your X. I don't care who you vote for. Go mark it. Go do it. Become involved.
Yes. Avoid engaging. Engaging is important.
There's a comment from nothing.
There's a comment from GT, and he's writing, "What do you gentlemen know about the IDU, International Democracy Union? Some say they pull Pierre string. Personally, I don't know this organization or association, but I would say I do not really trust international institution anymore. So maybe it is true. Maybe GT, you can give us some more detail, because honestly, I don't know this organization. What about you?
Yeah, I haven't heard of this organization. It doesn't surprise me that there are shadowy groups and peoples and families, and we've talked about this. And most of you who are watching or ever watched before realize that there are unelected agents and agencies pulling strings, and they use money and influence and power that you and I are never going to be able to.
Exactly.
But what we have that they don't is numbers.
That's why they don't want us to unite.
So as long as I keep you all divided, right? As long as it's rich whites versus poor whites, as long as it's middle class versus upper class, as long as it's brown versus red versus yellow versus purple versus magenta versus periwinkle and Martians, as long as they can keep our little
you forgot rainbow. You forgot rainbow.
And the rainbow. Yes, right. And the rainbow, because must include them. They're inclusive. You must do something, and showing up will force their hand. Right? I understand freedom saying voting is a waste of time, and I can even appreciate the alternatives. But the fact is, we must do something, and protesting is not enough. So you pick your man or you pick your woman. You're going to say, we're going to make sure you get on city council. One person. That way you don't have three and you're splitting vote splitting problem. That's hilarious that I said that.
Can we use
all of you who are in favor, that thousands and thousands of votes, push that person in. The machine can't stop you.
Can we use the analogy of the vacuum cleaner salesmen who ring at the door, and as soon as you open, he put his foot on the door. You cannot throw him out.
Kick the door open. Right? Kick the door open. I mean,
yes,
I am full. And if you're not in favor of actually participating in the electoral process, and that's okay, because you're a citizen, that's okay. Right? But if you're not in favor, then pick up some Martin Luther King literature and and I can't say much more than that, because it's basically, fomenting citizen disobedience and civic disobedience or whatnot. So, and take some ideas, right? So if you need to organize a sit-in and say, every Thursday we're going to sit in town hall out in the main lobby outside the secretary's office, and 15 of us are just going to sit there and eat up all the seats, right? And just sit there until someone says, what's going on? Then if that's the method you need to do, then go do it. We should be creative. We should be creative and be prepared to think outside the box. And the moment that the enemy, being, the security forces of whoever we're protesting against, the moment they show up, are also popping up over in another place. Something a little more in line with guerrilla tactics is that you're prepared to move quick. Agility matters. Creativity matters. And you can do it just long enough to irritate the enemy, and then that they have to respond, and then they're burning resources. You're applying pressure.
And you change the strategy. Instead of being in a defensive mode, you force them to react.
Yeah.
JT is mentioning, it is kabuki theater, Japanese theater, like everybody is playing a role. And I think Clown World was referring also to they all play a game. They all play a game.
Yeah.
We have to make them push them, and so they will be off guard.
Yeah.
But I was shocked when I saw yesterday the small clip with this congressman at the conservative convention, when somebody asked him why non-citizen people can vote in the leadership review. And the man did not. He answered, "It is our status," and that's it. And then he went away. He did not stay to engage in the conversation. It's very difficult today to engage in a conversation, even at the local basis, because they just don't answer.
And what you mentioned there is probably a really good way to begin to wind down the show, and that is at the Conservative Party of Canada convention, they passed a motion that would permit non-citizens to become party members. If I understand correctly, because I've been involved with it for more than 6 years, almost 7 years now, Elections Canada law says you must be a Canadian citizen, or what's the other word? Permanent resident. Then
No.
above the age
A
of
permanent resident cannot vote.
to be a member of the party. I said. Being a
Oh,
member of the
yes,
party,
okay.
right? Because
Okay,
being a member
okay.
of a party, I can be 14 years old and be a member of a political party.
Yes,
But
I do agree with you, but
I cannot vote. So the
you can be
member of
for
a-
too. You can be for too and have a gender surgery
Right.
too
But
in
what I'm
Canada.
saying is I don't even know if this motion is legal, right? But then the question is, so they allowed non-citizens to become members of the party. Did they pass that resolution? Because that becomes a constitutional amendment. They pass that resolution before the vote of confidence for Poilievre, or after?
Or after. It
And I
changed
think they
everything.
did, right? And I think they did it before, knowing they wanted the extra bump in numbers.
Well, okay. So now you are tampering with status and rules. GT is referring to the what he calls the IDU. It's a global alliance of center-right and conservative political parties chaired by former Canadian
Chaired
Prime
by
Minister
Harper.
Stephen Harper
Chaired by
since
Harper. So then it's a
2018.
steering committee for Conservative Party.
So that's interesting. Maybe that's the World Economic Forum of the conservative.
Yeah. So chaired by former Harp. So that's So IDU is a steering committee for the Conservative Party.
Thanks for the
Yes,
precision.
that's very
GT.
good.
It's very
I learned
appreciated.
something new today. So there you go. We talk about parties having steering committees within. but now they also have a steering committee from without. So you talk about your agents and agencies, right? Unelected people having influence. Now you've
Yes.
got Harper and his UN cronies pushing it. Yeah.
So we passed the 1 hour and 30 minute marks, my
Mm.
dear Tim. We were without our dear friend Peyman, but he was in the chat. I saw him how he's trying to understand
Lurking,
what we're lurking. exactly, exactly.
checking on his boys.
So according to what we discussed today, we still have a lot of work as Canadian, and I would hope that Canadian will listen to each other, pay attention to what other people are saying, whether you agree or not. I know sometimes it's difficult with some topics. It's very hard because we have problem engaging. But maybe I don't expect that we will save Canada, but at least we have to try. What do you think?
What's more important, saving Canada or saving Canadians?
Exactly.
And that's unfortunately we have to make that differentiation. But I'm here for the people, as much as this is very important to me, my family. I'm here for the people. What's that line? I am Canadian.
I am
End of story.
Canadian.
I am Canadian.
Yes.
Right? Or what did they say over in Je me souviens?
Je me souviens. Two last comment. One from unacceptable.
Mm.
The new Laura Lee. Harper is the first American Canadian, which could be. We were mentioning an alliance. And the other comment, which I like a lot, it's an advice from Clown World. Go for 2 hours, Jens. If you need to compensate for.
No,
I'm
we
going
can't go for 2 hours because my bladder's pushing.
Mine too, and I think we have talked enough, but I hope that we will be able to at least to engage people, inspire them. And you have a final word, my dear colleague?
I miss you, Peyman. Don't burn yourself out before you're 50.
Very, very fascinating. So thanks a lot to all our viewers. Comments were great. We had a lot of pleasure exchanging with you. We learned a lot about many aspects of. We went with Chrétien and now the IDU, which I didn't know about. And so until next week, I wish you a good weekend, Tim. Let's end it up on a positive note.
Bonsoir. Merci beaucoup.
So until then, we will. Oh, okay. Okay. Do svidania. I will add the Russian. Do svidania. So until next week, most probably Peyman will be back with us. We wish you a good night.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Good. Peyman, you're there? No?